me anything about politics. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I am here to answer all your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this show is where you can ask all the questions that you were worried about asking in other places because you thought maybe it might make you sound uninformed or stupid or something. There's no judgments here. There's no such thing as a dumb question. You can ask me anything that you like, regardless of how simple or complicated, and you will get a sincere and, non-roasty answer. I am not here to debate people. I am not here to roast people. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. This is not a show for fighting. I am not here to make fun of people or roast people or try to own anybody. What's up, Muzz King? Great to see you again. And so if you got a question that makes it clear that you're a MAGA person or a tanky or whatever, you don't have to worry about tailoring your question at all. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to roast you. It is just good faith answers to all good faith questions. What's up, D. Scott? Great to see you again as well. So yeah, if you're looking for people to debate each other and get into fights and try to own each other, this is not the show for that. This is just good faith answers to all good faith questions. We have too much division between what is going on in the world and our country and our government and what people believe is going on in our world and country and government. And so this is the place where we can all get together and figure out what's going on together so that we can all have a shared reality and we don't have to be living in a weird place where not only are we fighting about how to solve the problems, but we're fighting about what even are problems. What do these problems even exist? Is inflation a thing? Are there wars still? Like some people have completely different beliefs on all those things. And so ask away, we will get to it. Ego Lud says, who are you? My name is Jared Berenstein. I'm a stand-up comedian. I know a lot about politics. And so I am here to answer people's questions about politics. Ego Lud says, what you believe? Oh, I believe in a lot of things. You want to be more specific? So yeah, any questions, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Doesn't matter if your question is complicated or simple or right-wing or left-wing. So long as you are asking in good faith, you will get a good faith answer. Randomly Ski says, America first or Israel first? So obviously not Israel first randomly. I believe in taking care of American citizens first and foremost, but I don't believe in being completely isolationist. I think that problems that exist in other countries can and will eventually find their ways to America. And so it behooves all of us to solve those problems at their source. Okay, Ego Lud says, ideology? I call myself a progressive Democrat. Tic Tac, thank you very much. I'm really glad that you were able to see that show in Tucson. Bertz, good to see you again, says, what do you think about the Netanyahu and Zelensky meeting? Unfortunately, I have not checked that out yet, Bertz. So if you send me a DM, I will check it out and talk about it on tomorrow's show. Zero says, can you explain why I'm pro-life? Yeah, Zero. So that's a good question. I mean, I think it kind of has to do with what it is that you believe. Like, do you believe that any politician who might try to uphold a more liberal idea of who's allowed to get an abortion, who isn't abortion, like, do you think that's a deal breaker for you, for politicians? Let me know. Sigma Edit says, do you believe that Nick Her can win the election in Poland? Unfortunately, I don't know anything about Poland's politics. I mainly do America. I have a little bit of foreign policy information, but not a lot. Randomly Ski says, Netanyahu's fifth meeting with presidents, is that a good thing? I don't think so. Trump's foreign policy has basically been to support the more powerful nation in conflicts and then hope that eases whatever tensions are happening. It hasn't worked, but also it's like morally and logistically stupid. Like, we are sending more money and weapons to Israel, even though they are decimating the people of Palestine and doing war crimes and G-side. So it's like, he doesn't have a lot of daylight between Netanyahu already. And so every time they meet is just more of Trump saying, what can we do for you? Netanyahu saying jump and Trump saying how high. Narcos says, explain the rise of Palpatine to me and his political power. Unfortunately, that's not what this show is. I could do that, but that is not what this show is. Lasagna Mate says, what do you think of national Bolshevism? Depends on how you define it, Narcos. Lasagna Mate says, what do you think of national Bolshevism? LOL. Didn't you already? Oh, yeah, exactly. Narcos says, well, why not? Because we talk about the politics of, this universe, not the Star Wars universe. Jason says, do Democrats or Republicans spend more time trimming their beards? I don't know. Yeah, I figure probably more Democrats have beards these days than Republicans, but I could be wrong about that. Zero, still waiting for you to tell me about your abortion beliefs. I'm happy to get into it with you. V says, what do you think about communism? I think it depends on how you define communism. So the way that I define communism is employees owning the means of production. So basically any company that is employee owned is essentially communist. And there are a bunch of companies that are already, employee owned here in America, like Public Supermarket and Bob's Red Mill. They do the oatmeal and shit like that. So yeah, communism can work within other systems like socialism and capitalism. I just think we need a little bit more of that. We need a little bit more employee-owned companies, because we have massive income inequality here, and the people that have all the power also owns the means of creating the most wealth for themselves and stealing the productivity from the working class. So, there's my feelings on that. Straight Outta Stray says, is not the truth both parties are in bed together illusion of choice? No, it is not true. There are wildly different outcomes depending on who is in charge, both on the federal and state level. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which was not possible unless people voted for Democrats. And there are women who are dead today because of abortion bans that were not possible unless people voted for Republicans. So the politicians are different. The platforms are different. The governing history is different. Let's see here. Zero says, I think my comments are being muted. Sorry. All right. Can you rephrase it? Can you say something else? Let's see here. Nobody's fool says, everything in the universe exists on a spectrum, but conservatives only see black and white. I mean, I kind of agree with that, but I don't really like painting big groups of people with one broad stroke, So there are lots of conservatives out there who do not see things only as black and white. So I don't mind if you want to cast aspersions on the tastemakers in the Conservative Party, like Ben Shapiro and Nick Fuentes and Elon Musk and shit. But don't talk about the voters that way, because the voters are diverse. P&L says, are political parties a necessary evil for the United States? I don't know if they are a necessary evil. I mean, I see their value, like if you believe in climate change and gun control and doing something about income inequality and civil rights and a woman's right to choose and women being able to vote and shit like that, if you believe in supporting the LGBTQ community, then you're a Democrat, And so it makes it a lot easier for people to sort of like parse out what specific individuals believe if we know what their political party is. And I mean, obviously there's some issues with it being kind of like a driver of division in this country. And some people sort of like gamify party politics in order to achieve power and, grow their own pocketbook. But yeah, where all of these conversations about political parties usually ends up is, how can we open it up to not just the same old two political parties? And the answer to that is ranked choice voting. And the way we get ranked choice voting is we vote for Democrats. User a bunch of numbers. That is not true. Wonderflife, great to see you again, says, did you support the idea of Doge, even if not the leadership? So that's an interesting question, Wonder, because I knew that Doge was bullshit from the get-go, because Elon Musk was in charge of it, and it was going to be implemented by the Trump administration. And I knew that those two were lying grifter billionaires who were only trying to increase their own power and money. Now, the goal of Doge was to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Obviously, that is a great goal, but that's not what they did. So, do I support finding and eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse? Absolutely. Doge was never going to do that, though. I was never, under the false belief that that was what their actual goal was. Hugh says, may I please come up? It's sort of a long question. I'm mercurial about when I bring people up. Hang around, maybe you'll get lucky. Ego Lud says, I told my dad to invest in Dogecoin, but he didn't. I mean, depending on when you told him, it was either really good advice or really bad advice. Carter says, didn't they do a decent job? So Carter, the answer is no. And I understand why you might think that they did do a good job. Depending on where you get your news from, you either heard that they did a great job or they did a terrible job. And so, I don't know, it's difficult for me to attack this question from the position of like, I don't know what information you heard. But generally speaking, the only thing that Doge did was cut resources to valuable government programs. They lied about a lot of the things that they were finding and doing. They stole everybody's social security numbers and bank account information, and they put it onto unsecured hard drives. They fired a bunch of people they weren't legally allowed to fire. They shut down government organizations that were in the middle of investigating Elon Musk's companies. They mass fired veterans from the government. So, I mean, I would love if you don't. This is the thing is like you might believe me or you might not believe me. Just again depending on where you get your news from, Carter. So yeah, if you are taking the things that I am saying as potentially accurate, but you're not convinced yet, then I would be happy to send you some like follow-up information if you send me a DM. If you I don't know what sources you would trust, but the accurate information is that Doge did nothing but a ton of damage to our government. It did not reduce spending at all. We're spending more now than we did last year. Yeah, it was a massive violation of everybody's privacy. It was illegal in trying to fire people that they weren't allowed to fire and close down agencies that they're not allowed to close down. Yeah, it was a fucking shit show, Carter. Let me know. Chris says, why has Trump not been impeached? Because Republicans are in charge of Congress, and Republicans will not impeach one of their own, even if they do things that are wildly impeachable. And to me, that makes the Republican Party completely illegitimate. Like, you should be able to impeach a member of your own party if they do impeachable things. Like, that's fucking table stakes, man. Like, that is the easiest barrier to entry for being in politics. And the fact that the Republican Party is like, we're not going to do it because we like Donald Trump, I think means you should never vote for a Republican politician ever again. And I know that there's some people out there who are like, don't just vote along party lines. Like, you really got to learn, what each individual politician is about, because maybe the Republican is better than the Democrat in your specific district. But you got to think about it like this, like if you vote for a House Republican, that House Republican is going to be adding power and influence to all the other House Republicans and potentially the House Senate, the Republican senators, and potentially the Republican president. So where the general election is concerned, I say absolutely vote for the party over the person. You can get more into it for the primary elections. But yeah, I would never vote for a Republican. Just if there are a million reasons, but the fact that they will not impeach a president of their own party, no matter what they do, I think is the most wildly indicting and obviously indicting thing that a party can do. And the Republican Party is currently doing that. Okay, Birdan says, do you think Israel had anything to do with Kennedy's end? I don't know too much about the Kennedy assassination, but I think it's probably unlikely. Wonder if Life says, comment on the size of government. I mean, the government is massive under the Trump administration. Like, the definition of big government is jackbooted thugs marching down American cities, demanding people's papers, locking people up in concentration camps with zero due process, deporting people with zero due process, starting wars, keeping women from getting, health care that they desperately need, trying to meddle in elections, trying to, consolidate power and fire people who are not Trump toadies. It's like, that is big government. I'm DeGoat. Stop spamming the comments or I'm going to block you. Burdan says, what do you think of libertarian Republicans? I understand the appeal of libertarianism, but there's two things about it that I think mean. All right, you're blocked. I'm DeGoat. See you later. There are two things about libertarianism that, for me, completely invalidate it as a political philosophy. Number one is that they have tried libertarianism in a bunch of places, and it fails everywhere. There was a town in the northeast of America that tried a libertarian model, and their whole town got taken over by bears. So, a bad track record, number one. Number two is that if you read the history of the libertarian movement, if you read a book like Dark Money, for example, by Jane Mayer, it becomes clear that libertarianism was an astroturfed, political movement by the billionaire class because they want to dismantle government so they don't have to pay taxes and they don't have to abide by any government regulations and stuff like that. So yeah, I do not truck with the libertarian movement for that reason. It's the Rocketeer. Great to see you again over on Twitch. Burdan says, do you know the TikToker Blockscast? He's a libertarian Democrat. Oh, no, I never heard about that. I don't even know how a libertarian Democrat would, I don't understand how those two philosophies can mix together, Seems like kind of a, what's the word? Fuck me, I used to know this word. Seems kind of idiosyncratic. What's the word for a thing, two words that kind of cancel each other out, like giant shrimp or, stuff like that. Yeah, what the fuck's that word I'm thinking about? Right. Oxymoron. Thank you, D. Scott and Triska and Mama and Estia and Carvine and Ford Bintawagen and Jamal. You guys are so fucking an average Joe. Everybody fucking got it. Oxymoron. Thank you very much. Burdan says he ran part of the Bernie campaign and Obama. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about him, but sounds pretty interesting to me. Dan, great to see you again. Wonderflife says, can we reduce the size of the government? I mean, I'm sure we could, but reducing the size of the government, you can do it in good ways and in bad ways, the same way that you can cut regulations in good ways and bad ways. And so I guess the devil's in the details. Wonder, you got to actually figure out what is it that we want to be cutting and for what reason. Is it better to cut this thing or is it better to keep this thing? Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Muzzking, for helping me reach my first goal of the day, my first gift goal of the day. Okay, NRJL says, what's the difference between Obama's deportation policies versus Trump's? That is a really good question, NRJ. So I will give you the shortest possible answer. And if you want more information than that, just let me know in the comments. So the short version is that the Obama administration basically played by the rules. Like, there were laws about how you deport people, and he did them that way. And he tried to be as humanitarian about it as possible. The Trump administration is breaking laws. They are acting without any kind of oversight or regulation, and they are trying to be as cruel as humanly possible. And so that's the short version. Let me know if you want more specifics than that. Right. Burdan says, do you think the U.S. will ever have free healthcare? I'm from England and I'm planning on moving. I mean, the answer, Burdan, is if people vote for Democrats, then we are much more likely to get universal healthcare than if people vote for Republicans. Chance says, do you think every government will be corrupt to some degree due to human nature? I suppose, but that's the reason why we have things like oversight and balance of powers, is so that we can root out corruption where it exists and cut it out. Okay, Wonderflife says, I generally believe that government doesn't do anything well except war, and that's hugely costly. Wonderflife, would you like me to tell you some things that the government does really well? because the government has done things very, very well. I think the government gets a bad rap in that category. Okay, for the love of Ebb says, what was the word you used when you said you usually don't bring people up? Oh, mercurial. Mercurial. You know what movie uses that word mercurial in a way that really fucking sticks in my noodle? Is that Bradley Cooper movie Limitless, when he's right about to meet Robert De Niro's character, who's like the main like finance guy, and he's like extremely powerful, and his buddies are right about to introduce him, and he goes, "Now here's the thing, he's mercurial. Sometimes he's your best friend, sometimes he hates your guts." Okay, let's see here. Wonderflight. Okay, so GPS technology. That is something that the American government does. It works amazing. Weather tracking and predictions. That is something the American government does. It works incredibly well. The Affordable Care Act saves people's lives. It's not perfect, but it made it so that insurance companies can't discriminate against you for having pre-existing conditions. That saved people's lives. The post office. The fact that you were able to take a piece of paper and send it to somebody 3,000 miles away for like 40 cents, that's amazing. Let's see here. If you are, a member of the government, then your healthcare is basically, socialized healthcare. They do that incredibly well. Let's see here. What else does the government do good? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau saved Americans millions of dollars. Funding the IRS and adding more people to the IRS was finally going after rich tax cheats. They did that extremely well. So yeah, you need any more? You need any more than that, my guy? Bert says less views today than yesterday. Yeah, it's a holiday week. I'm not really too pressed about it. Burdan says, what are positives about Trump? I mean, even that guy I mentioned speaks highly sometimes. I do not like giving Trump any credit because he's basically an invasive species. He made out like a fucking bandit. He was extremely lucky. He, yeah, he's a bullshit artist who managed to ride a wave of the exact right time that a bullshit artist could be wildly successful. So yeah, I don't like giving him any credit for anything. Some people are like, I mean, he's funny, and I'm like, compared to what? Like other politicians? Yeah, sure, he's funnier than Hakeem Jeffries. Fucking go crazy, man. But no, he is not funny in my opinion. Yeah, massively corrupt, not a genius, just a fucking liar. He's just a massively corrupt liar. So yeah, I don't really see any value to the dude. Let's see here, Julius Cheeser, calling out the fact that I have Stein in my last name. So I'm not really sure if you mean to be anti-Semitic, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't do shit like that, because that's how it reads. Lucas says, why are most of our politicians funded by AIPAC and unconditionally support Israel? So that's a pretty complicated question, Lucas. But here's what I would say in response. Just because somebody takes money from a lobbying organization does not mean that they are necessarily on board with what that lobbying organization is trying to do. So if you are somebody who takes AIPAC money, it could mean that you are, supporting the Netanyahu government. It could mean that you just really need that campaign money. It could mean that you just don't want AIPAC to know that you are against them, because then they will start funding your, primary opponents and shit like that. Now, as far as unconditional support of Israel, the fact of the matter is that AIPAC is an extremely powerful and well-funded lobbying organization. And so a lot of politicians are incentivized to soft hand their criticism or pushback of Netanyahu because they're worried about a primary election. They're worried about AIPAC going after them. And the fact of the matter is, like, AIPAC has an extremely good track record of taking down politicians that stand up to Israel. And so I don't believe that Israel controls our politicians. But I do believe that when you have a lot of money, you are able to lose people their elections. And so Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, AIPAC, like all these massively well-funded lobbying organizations, the road is littered with the bodies of politicians that tried to stand up to them. And so if you don't want our politicians to be taking APAC money or Super PAC money or Federalist money or Heritage money, then don't vote for the politicians that they support. Because every time one of the politicians that they support wins, or they're able to lose an election for somebody that tried to stand up to them, you are only proving them right. You are only proving that their money is working. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, scrolling up. Okay. Chance says, is there anything the Trump administration has done that you think has been beneficial? I mean, killing the penny, I think, probably. Let's see here. Ethan J. Young says, wait, you toured with Steve Hofstadter, right? That is correct. Bird Ann already did that one. That guy troll says, how can we pass term limits for politicians and Supreme Court judges? You got to vote for Democrats because Republicans are not going to do it. Jetset says, you are so important. Thank God you're on this platform guiding people towards the absolute truth. That's a very nice thing to say, Jetset. Thank you. Right, Dan Blackboard, National Parks. Let's see here. Lucas, I already did that one. Ethan J. Young. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you, man. I love doing Salt Lake City. Burdan says, what about crime dropping by the biggest amount in recorded American history? Saw it from Dylan Page. So the thing is, when you're looking at crime statistics, it's very easy to cherry pick. So like what Republicans tend to do is they will look at certain statistics about crime going down and then either ignore or discredit other crime statistics. Like crime was rapidly going down during the Biden administration. Like it was one of the main successes of the Biden administration was that crime was cratering and nobody cared and nobody believed it. So yeah, I would point you to 2020 when crime in America was fucking skyrocketing. It due in part to Trump's mishandling of the COVID pandemic. For some reason, Republicans never focus on that one. Burdan, So, if you want to get more specific into it, like we can, but that's the general one. Jack says, thoughts on the Somali daycare fund? So yeah, that was a scam that was perpetrated by a white lady whose name I forget. And I guess she hired mostly Somali immigrants to do her fraud for her. So we are calling it the Somali daycare fraud, even though it was just a white lady who was doing it. So, maybe that's not like a fair way of describing it. Jack, what do you think about that? Okay, Wonder of Life says, I love that you are trying to do that mostly. I'm trying to do what mostly? Wonder of Life? What are you referring to? Thank you, Triska. Thank you, Musking, for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Okay. Laukabd says, thoughts on Uruguay? I know almost nothing about it. Okay. Bert says, is it true what Nick Shirley said about the Somali daycares and Tim Walz' scandal? No, it is not. I don't know a ton about Nick Shirley, but I have seen at least one video debunking him and calling him out for being full of shit. So, yeah, no, Nick Shirley, thumbs down, not an accurate reporter of information. The Known Dark Senate says, how's the boss man Jared Berenstein? He's doing pretty good. Flonk Sauce, great to see you again, says, have you heard anything about 45 changing the class? Yes, I have heard about that. I'm not mad at it, but it's most likely due to the gardening lobby greasing his palm. I don't think that he did it out of the kindness of his heart. I think he did it because he got money, and I think he did it because he's trying to buy people's votes. It's always good to see you, Dark Senate. John Abbott, great to see you again as well. And thank you, Dan Blackroyd and Triska, for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. All right. Stephen Michael says, you think Iran and Russia are going to join up and go to war with the U.S. and Israel? Oh, that's a really good question, Stephen Michael. I don't know what the relationship is between Iran and Russia. It's a little sticky, though. Like, Russia has a relationship with Israel. America has a relationship with Israel. And so I don't know if it's as clean of a break as Iran and Russia on one team and America and Israel on the other. I could be wrong about that. That's a kind of a complicated question. Yeah, I would just say it's complicated. I don't think anybody can predict that at the moment. Birdan says, what do you think of Tulsi Gabbard? I saw her on Joe Rogan and she seems super genuine. She's just said too many things that I know are complete lies, and so if I want to be hyperbolic, I would say she's a con artist and she's always full of shit. But you know, her motivations seem to be a little bit weirder and more complicated. Like, I don't know, the leaders, the world leaders that she is hyping up are bad people. Okay, Tony C and the Jets says, this silly question. Russia is extremely bogged down and has pretty good relations with Israel. Yeah, but I mean, Putin doesn't seem like he is slowing down. Like he's antagonizing Poland and sending drones over Europe and NATO nations. It's like, but some people's accounts are suggesting that Russia is in a very bad place because of the war with Ukraine. Putin seems to be escalating things. So where I might agree with you, like they have a good relationship with Netanyahu and he's bogged down with the war in Ukraine, that dude's weird. And I don't think that many people would have thought it was a logical choice for him to invade Ukraine, and he did. So, Okay, big one says climate politics or collapse politics, which is more interesting. I don't really know what that means. The Blacksmith says, are a lot of liberal groups behaving fascistic? I don't think so. Wonder if Life says, was saying dismissing any political opposition as stupid/evil isn't strong as strictly debating policy. Dismissing any political opposition as stupid or evil isn't as strong as strictly debating policy. I think that's pretty fair, Wonder of Life. I mean, if you look at the Republican Party right now, like elected politicians, Fox News, content creators, Ben Shapiro, like all those kinds of people, they do all seem to be operating on a single ethos. And so I don't think that it is inaccurate to look at that specific group of people and be like, these guys are pieces of shit who are lying and are doing this for their own money and power. I believe in having that kind of empathy for voters, but where elected Republicans are concerned, they are letting Trump have a cryptocurrency. They are letting him detain people without due process. They are letting him deport people without due process. They are letting him get away with fucking murder. And that, I feel like, is a massive indictment and allows me, I think, to be able to say they are all stupid and evil. Not the voters, the elected politicians. Alan Seconds says, Republican or Democrat? Democrats. Wonderful Life says, so many people are way closer to the middle. Yeah, I think so. But I also think that people have inaccurate ideas of the political parties. I think more people would be Democrats if they had an accurate view of how the parties operate and what their platforms are. So I think it's generally an accurate statement to say that Americans do not have an accurate view of how bad the Republican Party is and have an overly negative view of the Democratic Party. And I think that if that error was corrected, we would see a lot more people, on the left side of the spectrum than in the center. Boring 2024 says, any misinformation from the left? Yeah, but it's not coming from the main people. Like if you follow random ass left-wing content creators on the internet, like 100% you're going to be getting misinformation. But misinformation doesn't come from left's political leadership, and it doesn't come from like Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow and shit like that. Whereas the people at the top of the Republican food chain, the elected Republican politicians, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, like they are misinformation mongers. Like that is what they do. Wonder if Life says, I think you are too generous with Democrats, accurate on Republicans mostly. Thank you for giving me that, at least, my guy. But yeah, I will stand by the fact that America has an inaccurately negative impression of the Democratic Party. And I can argue this 10 ways from Sundays if you want me to really go into it. I have this speech memorized. I've done it 1,000 times. User whole bunch of numbers says, is the talking head a lib or conservative, red or blue? I am a progressive Democrat. User 774865. Okay, Burdan says top 5 presidents. Oh, I don't know. I'm not really a history guy. Boring 2024 says, you are saying MSNBC does not push information. I think you probably meant to say misinformation. And yes, they do not push misinformation. Boring 2024. Okay, if you have any evidence contrary to that, Boring, let me know. Send me a DM. I will happily get into it. But they've done the research on this, Boring. They have done the research that when you break down all of the various news channels, the is right-wing news. Captain Cosplay says, capitalism or socialism? Por qué no los dos? We have capitalism and socialism in America. They have capitalism and socialism in Canada, in Norway, in the UK, in France, and Germany. Maybe we could use a little bit more socialism here because we have wildly out of control income inequality right now. Maybe a little bit of socialism could help that. Private markets don't really seem to be a great place for housing or education or healthcare because of how, as evidenced by how terrible all of those industries are right now, how prohibitively expensive all three of those are right now. At says, talk about Israel politics if you know something. I mean, Netanyahu's a massive piece of shit. His far-right coalition is doing war crimes and genocide against the people of Palestine. I think that we should do everything that we can to encourage the citizens of Israel to vote for better politicians in the future. And I do not believe that we should continue sending them money and weapons because they are guilty of war crimes and genocides. And we already have a rule in the books that says that we're not allowed to do that. Lauren, great to see you again. Captain Costo says, do you agree with a balance of capitalism and socialism, not just one or the other? Yeah, I mean, well, let's start like this. All right. We've got this much capitalism in we got this much socialism in America, and we got this much capitalism in America right now. And so why don't we do more of a, Scandinavian model where it's a little bit more like 50-50, and then we can see how much better that is. If there are people who want to make the argument that we should have even more socialism than that, I'm open to it. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, let's just even the scales out a little bit. We got too much capitalism here in America. Boring 2024 says, I think you want much more socialism. All right, Boring. Well, you're not asking questions. I'm getting a little tired of your attitude, so ask a question in good faith or I'm going to boot you. Burdam says, 100% socialism leads to, well, we know. We don't know. It has never been attempted. Burdam. User 774865 says, how is this Somali money scam different than Ukraine or APAC money? I mean, they're wildly different. First of all, it's not a Somali scam. It is a white lady. She organized the whole thing, and she hired Somalian immigrants to do her scam. So it's weird that you would call it a Somali scam when it was a white person who did it. Dime Bag Dom says, that's socialist cope, LMAO. All right, well, that's not a question, so ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Burdan says, really, I thought the USSR was the United Soviet Socialist Republic. Yeah, so Russia has called itself socialist or communist in the past. But just because a country calls themselves something does not mean that they're actually that thing. Like North Korea calls himself a democratic republic, but that is a straight up fucking dictatorship. So the fact of the matter is, every country that has ever called themselves socialist or communist has, in essence, been a dictatorship. And if you actually abide by the philosophy of those precepts, they are antithetical to authoritarian governments. So they called themselves that, but they weren't actually that. Okay, Oreo20 says, what was the purpose of the Nigerian bombing? So I'm not 100% sure, Oreo20. I'm half remembering this, so I would say double check this, but if I remember correctly, there was an incident in Nigeria with some American troops who were attacked. And so this was like retaliation. The Trump administration was saying that this is about a Christian genocide, which is a lie. And so potentially the actual reason is because they're just trying to, buoy more support for their Christian nationalist agenda. But again, that's half remembered. Take that with a massive grain of salt, everybody. Wonder says, humans can't abide by socialist principles. It doesn't seem, always devolves. I mean, it's not currently devolving in Canada or Sweden or Norway or Germany or France. So yeah, not really sure what you mean by that, my guy. Lovely X-Fam says, you know a good news source I should trust? Yeah, I would say go for Ground News. It's a news aggregate, so you're getting a little bit of everything. And it will let you know if the source that you're reading is right-wing or left-wing or centrist or whatever. Additionally, there's a lot of data out there saying that right-wing news sources are the least accurate of all the news sources. So I would just say avoid right-wing media and you're probably good to go. Okay, Corey says, I mean, we all know communism doesn't work past a population of 500. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. It's never been tried. Okay, Average Joe says, regarding the earlier crime question, according to American Progress, 2020 to 2021 saw a 44% increase in gun-related homicides, followed by a 10% and 15% decrease. Nonviolent crime rates followed a similar trend, but did not decrease as much, meaning crime was likely such an important factor in the 2024 election simply because so many people had been affected by it from 2020 to 2024. Oh, that's pretty interesting. But again, I would want to dig into those numbers a little bit. Like, 2020 to 2021 increase. Like, are we tracking COVID during that? Are we tracking, post January 6th? I'm interested. Okay, Corey says it's been proven multiple times. Can you name me the country that has proven that? User 77 says, LOL, left media more honest, LOL. Who is paying you, bro? No one's paying me, user. Again, here's the thing, user. I know you don't give a shit about facts and data, and I can send you all of the information showing you that right-wing media is the least accurate media that exists, but you don't care. You are here to spread this idea that left-wing media is bad, and so you can leave. Super Smash B says, communism is better than socialism, better than capitalism, better than fascism. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to dive into that one. Okay. Corey, yeah, let me know which country proved that communism doesn't work past a population of 500. Let me know. Ooh, ready. Let's see here. Shloga says the categorization of politics is actually worthless. Yeah, I generally agree with that. I think there's some use to it. But yeah, we can't live and die on these semantic arguments about what these words mean. Okay. Shloga says, are you a Rothbardian? Is that a fucking D&D class? I never heard about that. Jacob Doob says, if every country who has publicly been labeled a socialist country by your words is not, doesn't seem like that sentence is finished. But I mean, they're not. Oh, Jacob says socialism is socialism not real? No, socialism is real. Socialized medicine. They have it in Canada and everywhere in Europe. That's what socialism is. It's just the government using our taxpayer dollars to buy things that supposedly help all of us equally. Or not equally, but just supposedly help all of us. Ooh, ready. Faye likes shading. Says, are you pro-choice? Yes, I am. Right. Burdan says, what do you think about the whole idea of America first? That is an excellent question, Burdan. I cannot wait to get into it. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything important. Let me know that you're still here, Burdan. I took a political test. I'm in the ambivalent right. Oh, that's interesting. Danny Phantom says, does the left really prop up Jasmine Crockett as their next presidential candidate? I mean, I'm not doing that. I don't know who is. She is allowed to run for president if she likes. Ferris says, are you an Israel supporter? I support every country equally. I do not support the Netanyahu government. User says, I know right-wing media is wrong, fake, but I have no faith in the left side. But if you believe, you do you. I suppose that's fair, user, but where do you go for accurate information then if you think that right-wing media is biased and inaccurate and left-wing media is biased and inaccurate? Okay. Okay, so Burdan, your question that I said was a really good question was America first. So here's the thing. There are different levels to America first. Like, do we want to be a fully isolationist country like North Korea? That seems to be a bad move. Do we want to just prioritize American citizens and American issues before we start sending money overseas? I could get behind that. Absolutely. Problem with that philosophy is that those problems will eventually come to America. And so it serves us well to invest a little bit in the health of other countries so that those problems don't eventually get to us. The other thing I want to say about that is that the Republican Party has been touting this America First line about let's not send money to Israel, let's not send money to Ukraine or all these other countries, let's close down USAID, etc., so that we can use that money to take care of Americans and American issues. But then they don't. They want to cut off funding for Israel. They want to cut off funding for Ukraine. They shut down USAID, and then they don't fund programs here in America. They're fucking dicing up healthcare. They are massively defunding programs that Americans desperately need. So where is that money going that was supposed to go to USAID? Well, it went into a billionaire's pocket. So yeah, I don't have any specific issue with prioritizing taking care of American citizens over solving the world's problems. But I think that there's a balance. And I also think it's important to point out that the Republican politicians are 1000% full of shit on this issue. You know, the same Republican politicians that were out there saying America first, are still sending money and weapons to Israel. Mike says, why doesn't the U.S. push Israel for nuclear transparency? I mean, it doesn't really seem to be top of the priority list. I think number one would be to stop doing war crimes and genocide against the people of Palestine, but let's put it on the list. Mr. McFudge says, what was the actual goal canceling EBT cards and food stamps? So there's kind of like this big umbrella goal for the billionaire class and the Republican Party, and that is to increase everybody's desperation. Because when people are desperate, they do a couple of things. Number one, they do more crime and violence. And when there's more crime and violence, then you are able to justify doing things like sending the National Guard into American cities and instituting martial law. And they want that. They want to have more authoritarian control over America. The other thing that happens when people get desperate is they do whatever they can to survive. And that means working 3 jobs, 80 hours a week, regardless of how terrible or dangerous or demeaning or low paying those jobs are. And when you're desperate, you don't have time to unionize or vote or do political activism or get an education. Like, that's the world that they want. They want you to be too busy and desperate to do anything but struggle to survive. And when you can't do it anymore, they want you to do a crime so that they can look at that crime and go, look, there's crime here. Send in the National Guard. Send in ICE. Mr. Cow Manure says, how many baby mamas does Trump have? I think that we know about 3 right now, but it could be more that we don't know about. Scarves of Men says, are you excited to see Zoran and Exchange, or do you think this could be a farce? I mean, I don't think it's going to be a farce. What I think is going to happen is he's going to try things. Some of the things are going to work, and some of the things are not going to work. The billionaire class is going to do whatever they can to make his agenda not work artificially. And there's going to be, you know, they're going to fund a whole bunch of think pieces about the failed promise of Zohran Mamdani and shit like that. But yeah, I think he's going to try. Whether or not he's successful is an open question. Okay, Burdan says, who do you think is going to run next election? Even further, who do you think will win? I don't usually do predictions, Burdan, and I really don't like talking about 28 when we got the 2026 elections coming up. Like, I want everybody laser focused on 2026. Kirsten says, what do you think is going to happen to the economy in 2026? So that's a really good question, Kirsten. You seem hot as hell. That's my wife, everybody. So let's see here. What's going to happen in 26? Yeah, this is exactly the kind of predictions I do not feel confident making, because there's just so much chaos in trade and financial markets right now. Trump's chaotic tariff policy, increasing global instability by bombing more presidents than any American president in history, more countries than any American president in history. You know, hyper monopolization, unprecedented greed, corruption, bribery. Yeah, it can go in any direction. Like, I think it is possible that we see some sort of market crash happen in 2026. I think it's also possible that we see financial markets engaging in basically like market rigging in order to sort of like cement their profits, but everybody else kind of gets fucked. So yeah, nobody knows. Yeah, I have no fucking idea, you know. Big Salah says, what do you think of Israel recognizing Somaliland? So I don't know too much about that. What I do know, one of my other regulars recently said something to the effect of like, They recognize them so that they can start ethnically cleansing Palestinians and moving them to Somaliland. That kind of tracks with everything that I know about Netanyahu. So, kind of fucking sucks, in my opinion. All right. Oi. User a bunch of numbers says healthcare will rise and more bankruptcy. I think that is I'm pretty confident that is an accurate prediction. User a bunch of numbers. Borayo says, do you think I could be president one day? Sure, probably. If you were born in America, I think that's like the only stipulation is you have to be like above the age of 35 and born in America. Birdan says, I'm visiting the U.S. next May. I'm going to California and Texas. I'm so excited. It shows an interesting couple of states to visit. Mr. McFetch says, what is due process supposed to look like? It's supposed to look like charges and a trial, and you get a lawyer, and then potentially you get a jury, and then you actually hash that out in court. And Nevada. Yeah, there's good stuff in all those states. Okay. Cleveland says, Jarrett, you're going to be poor. I mean, we're all going to be poorer because of cost of living increases. Alrighty, let's see here over on Twitch. We've got Average Joe says, respectfully, I believe you are mistaken about Republican congressmen wanting to stop sending money to Israel. The most recent vote regarding Israel funding had 0 Republicans voting no. It's their anti-Semitic Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens base that wants to stop funding Israel for reasons. No. I'm with you, Average Joe, 100%. If we're talking about who's actually not going to send money to Israel anymore, it's the Democratic Party. But the Republican Party is saying, stop sending money to Israel, stop sending money to Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. You're totally right there. Flonk Sauce says, allegedly, the baby in the lake story was his. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to figure it out, Scars of Men says, what do you think is the purpose of the Patriot Games? Distraction, Trump putting his name on things, wasting more taxpayer dollars, corruption. I'm sure there's going to be insider deal, government contracts for his buddies, shit like that. Mr. McFly says, if due process isn't happening, what is? Of human rights violations. Basically, people are just being picked up, detained without charges, not being given access to a lawyer, deported. People are being told to sign documents that they can't read because it's not in the language that they can speak. Those are all due process violations, Mr. McFudge. Birdan says, how successful do you think Nick Fuentes would be if he got into politics? Probably not. Not successful. I do not believe that Americans have a desire for his level of misogyny and racism and anti-Semitism. Boring 2024 says, are you paying reparations to African Americans? No, I am personally not solving racism in America. Boring. Mr. McFarland says, what is causing the homelessness crisis in America? So there are different causes for homelessness in different places. If you read Abundance by what the fuck is the dude's name? Ezra Klein. He makes the argument that the reason why there's homeless in California is because we have not built enough houses, and we haven't been building enough houses for 2 decades. And there are other issues, for example, income inequality, deaths of desperation, addiction issues, things like that. Healthcare costs, escalating housing costs, stuff like that. Use a whole bunch of numbers. Says, will China control the Venezuelan oil markets? I do not know. I got to punt on that. Kalindra says, hi. Hello back. Lucas Like Screen Quarter says, am I anti-Semitic for wanting them to stop the war? Am I a bad person? No, 100% not. No, but Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic. Like, he calls himself that. Like, I'm not saying that. He calls himself that. The Hawk says, can you tell me Democratic new policies for 2026 midterms? All I hear is we hate Trump. So it's difficult. I don't know if there's an agreed upon platform right now, the Hoff, but from what I can tell, the Democrats are going to be running on affordability. They're going to be saying the Trump administration is causing inflation to go up. It has tripled your healthcare costs. He is too busy building a ballroom and bombing Venezuela the boats off the coast of Venezuela, and he is not bringing down your cost of living. And when you tell him you're not doing that, he says this is a hoax. And so what we need in government is some accountability. And if you give us access to the House or the Senate, then we will be able to have an influence in that. But the Democratic Party can't have like a full-fledged platform going into 26, because best case scenario is they take over Congress. That's not enough to solve affordability. That is not enough to pass universal health care, you know? Okay, Mr. McFudge says, as of right now, are we the land of the free? I mean, you know, I don't know if we're 100% free or 100% not free. I would say we're probably like 65% not free, maybe. Birdan says, do you think the Venezuelan president is corrupted by the cartel? Yeah, he's not a good guy, but we should not be starting wars with Venezuela just because we want to do regime change. Like, we know how this plays out. America has done this many times in the past. It never works. Wonderfly says, when talking corruption, how sus is Pelosi's portfolio? It is extremely sus, but so is Ted Cruz's and Lauren Boebert's and Marjorie Taylor Greene's and Rick Scott's. Nancy Pelosi did this stupid fucking thing of going out there and saying that she didn't think it was bad that people in Congress traded stocks on insider information. And then she became the face of Congress trading on insider information, becoming rich off of insider information, even though every single fucking Republican politician does it also. So yeah, Pelosi's portfolio is sus as hell. But you know who else is fucking crushing it? Ted Cruz, Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, fucking all those ding-dongs. Julian Hernandez says, as a Democrat, I think the fraud in Minnesota is horrible. I think it is too. I think that the white lady that perpetuated that fraud in Minnesota should 100% go to jail. Average Joe says, did you know we paid reparations to Japanese Americans and their descendants in 1988 for imprisoning them during World War II? I'm sure the black population appreciated that. Yeah, Average Joe. For some reason, we didn't have a problem with those reparations. Isn't that interesting? Mr. Cowmanure says, why is Ballroom more than twice the size of the entire White House? Excellent question. Seems like maybe somebody should have stopped him from destroying the east wing of the White House. Doesn't seem like it was the move. Mr. McFudge says, is Trump's name in the emails or flight logs for the island, and why haven't they been released? So a bunch of them have been released already, and a bunch of them have proven that his name is in there. The Trump Justice Department redacted hundreds of pages of documents, but then they didn't do a great job of redacting those. So they are both guilty of not abiding by I think it's called the Epstein Transparency Act or something like that. And Pam Bondi is potentially going to get impeached because of that. But also there are more documents to be released that they are, delaying or, whatever. Like that, a bunch of information is out there, basically. Okay. Devil Dog says, how can I be bad on attacking Venezuela, changing the government? I mean, you, Devil Dog, whoever you are, you can criticize Venezuela as much as you like, but the American government should not be going to war with Venezuela. Like, we did this in Iraq and it worked out terribly. We did this in Afghanistan and it worked out terribly. It's a combination of the war on drugs and the war on terror, and those are both wildly massive failures. Devil Dog, let me know what you think about that. Mr. McFudge says, I understand redacting names of victims, but why is other stuff being redacted? If according to your reporting, Mr. McFudge, it's being redacted because it would be embarrassing or incriminating to Trump and his friends. So there we go. Alrighty, let's see here. Average Joe says, how much do you want to bet the majority of people that immediately associate Pelosi with insider trading have listened to no fewer than 10 Joe Rogan podcasts? I don't think that's fair. It's funny, Average Joe, but I don't think it's fair. And thank you, Triska and Muzzking, for helping me reach my 4th gift goal of the day. We're going to be wrapping up pretty shortly, guys, because we are at about an hour right now. So get in your final questions. Jesse Fish says, do I need to be forklift certified to become a politician? No, you do not. RDL says, one more time, if Democrats only pass the Affordable Care Act, how come it's not affordable? So it did make healthcare less affordable for some people, but in the long run, RDL, it did make healthcare more affordable than if it had not existed. Additionally, it made it so that health insurance companies couldn't discriminate against people for having pre-existing conditions, which saved people's lives and made their healthcare more affordable. So there you go. Anthony says, "Are you from Agartha?" I don't know. Agartha. That's got to be a bit. That's got to be like both of these nuts or something. Agartha. Yeah, I can't figure it out. Brent Lee says, "Thoughts on the Minnesota childcare fraud? The lady who perpetuated it, the white lady that perpetuated it, should go to jail." Mr. McFudge, is there a reason why healthcare isn't free? Because people make a lot of money having the private insurance system that we have right now. And those people who make a lot of money off of that pay for political access to politicians. And they help politicians get elected who will fight against universal health care. Okay, Democrats will undo a lot of that if we give them enough political power. So I would encourage you guys. Let's see here. Oh, Agartha is a Nazi dog whistle. What the hell is Agartha? It's got to be like a Israel or Jew thing or something like that. Agartha is the belief of life after death in the Church of Scientology. Oh no, no, I'm not a Scientologist. JP, great to see you, JP. Were you here already, JP? Did I already say hi to you, JP? I have not said hi to you, JP. Welcome to the party, pal. Okay, Birdan says Nazis always talk about it. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Excellent block, Rena. You're doing the work. Matthias Burr says, "What is the political system in Iran? Is it electoral?" I believe it is authoritarian. I believe it is a religious authoritarian sect. I believe it is I forget the word for that. A theocracy, basically. Okay, Anthony says, "What is your beverage of choice?" You know what I fucking love? A non-alcoholic beer. Give me that shit. Let's see here. All right, yeah. Okay, I think we're about to get ready to I think we are right about to get ready to do our outro. Triska, my wife is feeling okay depending on what time you ask her. Seems like things are a little bit harder for her in the evening times. She just bought one of those straps for her belly to help keep it up. Mr. Cowmanor says, "Will Trump announce war with Venezuela soon?" I have no idea. It seems like we're moving in that direction, but I don't know what his specific schedule or plan is. Okay. Lauren says, "That's all the worst parts about beer with none of the benefits." Listen, I started drinking beer because I liked how it made me feel, and then I fell in love with the taste. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for that, Lauren. Anyways, thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you so much for your support, your questions, your comments, your gifts, your likes. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling, but if you want to, you can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can buy things from the store on my website. Links to both of those things are in the bio. And you can send gifts and become super fans and subscribers on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. If you want a totally free way to send me $2 and you have Amazon Prime, if you subscribe to my Twitch using your Amazon Prime account, I get $2. It costs you exactly $0. Thank you very much to my Twitch subscribers, Triska, Lauren, and Kayslo. Thank you to my TikTok superfans, Susie, Sean, Dean, and Hot Sauce. And thank you to my patrons, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Tomorrow we are starting an hour early so that my wife and I can go party for New Year's. So tomorrow we will be starting at 10:30 a.m., but then we'll be back to our regular streaming schedule after that. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. Email me through my website. Shoot me a message on my Discord channel. I want to be a resource for you to be better informed and more involved in politics. And if I can do that for you, if there's a way that I can do that for you, then I want to do it. Use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. Discord is my favorite resource right now because in addition to being able to get in touch with me that way, you can also form community with other fans of the show. And there are great recommendations on there for books and podcasts and nonprofit organizations that you should 100% be donating your time and money to. And let's see here. Lastly, I just hope that everybody out there does the work, because that is the only way that we're going to get out of this, is if people like you and me go out there and do the work. Thank you, Sacred Mischief. I hope that you have a wonderful new year as well. Scott Smith says, Newsom versus Vance, who wins? I do not believe that Vance has the juice to become president. So I think he's a turd. No one's going to vote for him, in my opinion. Mr. Cowmanure says, why does Border Patrol ICE jobs listed on Indeed? I mean, they're just trying to hire as many people as they can, I guess. Trump wants to have a larger personal army. Seems like the thing, you know? Burdan says, love from the UK, bro. I disagree with some of your opinions, but you're super nice, dude. Thank you, Burdan. I appreciate you being here. Alrighty. And that seems like it. Average Joe says, is your wife at the I must have pickles, or is it like my wife where a bag of mini Snickers never lasted longer than 20 minutes? No, so my wife, before she got pregnant, she was living at I must have pickles. Like, she loves, I know that sounds dirty, but she's always loved that flavor profile. And now that she's pregnant, that hasn't stopped. She does get weird cravings, but mostly it has to be like small meals or it gives her a stomach ache. Joe says, who do you think would make a good nominee for president? You know, I'm kind of bullish on Chris Murphy. I know he's not exciting. You know, he's just a fucking regular ass white dude from Connecticut, but he's whip smart. He does the fucking work. He keeps his head down. He's a good communicator. Like, I like him. I think he'd do a great job, but that's not an endorsement of any particular person for the primary. I don't even know if he's running. I just like him. Mr. Cowmanure says, why are Border Patrol jobs so easy to get, and why are they giving $50,000 bonuses? Because Trump is trying. The only thing we're spending money right now on is giving tax cuts to billionaires, building data centers for AI and crypto, and funding ICE. ICE is now like the 6th largest, most well-funded law enforcement organization on the planet. I think it has more money than the Italian army, you know? So yeah, Trump wants to have his own personal Gestapo. He wants it to be as large as possible. So he will throw any amount of money onto that. Logan Sleeth says, are you Republicans? I'm not. I'm a progressive Democrat. Joe says, do you think the Dems should go more left, coming at this as a person who is very left and from the UK? So it's interesting, Joe. There are certain things in the Democratic platform that are very attractive to people and are described as far left policies. But if you ask Americans what far left policies are, it's not the kind of economic populism that people like me associate with the far left. It is more like woke, transgender shit, reparations, just like wildly unpopular culture war stuff gets tagged as being the far left of the Democratic Party, when the far left of the Democratic Party is actually just about like taxing the billionaires, having some sort of reasonable gun control, etc. So weirdly, you know, if we level the playing field and we're able to sort of like incept these ideas into everybody in America's brains, then everybody in America would be, I mean, except for the billionaire class, of course, everybody in America would ascribe to that platform. But Americans for a long time have been being lied to, not just about what the Democratic Party is and what their track record has been, but also what it means to be far left, what it means to be a centrist. So yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. If we were just dealing with America as it is right now, the majority of Americans think that the Democratic Party is too far to the left already. But again, I think that that is inaccurate because Americans don't really have an accurate idea of what the Democratic Party is, what they've done, and what they're trying to do. Lyndon Glover says, Republican or Democrat? Democrat. Logan Sleeth says, do you support the murder of babies in the womb? No, I do not, but I am pro-choice, so you can figure out the discrepancy there yourself. Strictly 5 says, so a Marxist. I don't call myself that. I can call myself a progressive Democrat. Thank you, Lauren. Our baby is due on May 2nd. Let's see here. Strictly 5 says, I'm getting a huge tax cut in 2026 and I'm poor, LOL. I don't buy that for one fucking second. Lyndon Glover says, life begins at conception. You were in the minority, Lyndon. Not everybody believes that here in America. Strictly 5 says, so you're not a Democrat then? No, I am a Democrat. I'm a progressive Democrat. Joe says, what do you think about Israeli money? It's fine, I suppose. If you're asking me, do I think that politicians should take money from AIPAC? The answer is no. But I also don't think that it is if you got two politicians who are both running for the same seat and they both take AIPAC money, I'm still voting for the Democrat. Diane Reyes is Progressive Democrat and Democratic Socialist. People say that there's not a lot of daylight between those two, and I'm not really going to argue that. I don't really care. Strictly Five says, you're the minority. No, I'm not. Also, I don't really think that you're here in good faith, Strictly Five, so you can leave whenever you want. Sam Kennedy says, why does your political thoughts matter? I know a lot about it, and so I'm here to help people know things. All right, Strictly, congratulations. You are out of here. I'm tired of your nonsense. Okay, Lyndon Glover says science confirms that. Science has not confirmed that life begins at conception. So, not really sure. Not really sure. Oh, wow, Lauren, you got 5 kids? Ooh. Oy, oy, oy. Oh, my goodness. You poor thing. I hope it got easier with every successive child. Sam Kennedy says, thoughts on Israel. The current government of Israel is an abomination. They are doing war crimes and genocide. And so we should stop sending them money and weapons because that is immoral and also against the law. Logan Slee says, I'm a Republican, but I respect the fact that you love your country and I hope we can get along. I hope so too, Logan. As long as you ask questions in good faith, you are welcome to be here. Diane Reyes says, I was one of 6 and it was a glorious childhood. Oh, that's nice, Diane. I'm glad to hear that. Lyndon says, what is Kamala's greatest accomplishment during her 4 years of being vice president? She had limited power, Lyndon, and I blame some of that on the Biden administration. If you read Jake Tapper's Original Sin, he talks a little bit about how the Biden team kind of sidelined the Harris people, but she went down to the country south of the border and tried to address some of the root causes of the immigration crisis. So, I thought that was pretty cool. Alrighty. Okay. Mr. Cow Manure says, why does RFK Kennedy talk like a type of cockroach guy from the Men in Black movie? I think he had like some sort of a problem with his vocal cords or cancer or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah. Flunk Sauce Dragon says, what do you think about Jared Moskowitz? I don't know who that is. The name sounds really familiar, though. Average Joe says, Fox News tells me Dems want all illegal immigrant criminals to be given trans surgery, so it's got to be true. That is exactly what I'm talking about, my guy. Spasmic esophagus. I guess that's what RFK has. Spasmic esophagus. All right, everybody. We are an hour early tomorrow. So if you want to come check out the program tomorrow, we will be starting at 10:30 a.m. instead of 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Do the work, everybody. Do the work. That's the only way we get out of this. And if you don't know what the work is, check out my Discord. Link is in the bio. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat channel, 1 hour earlier. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.